Yeah, hello everyone. We continue with our class for research methodology. Okay, um, for the topic of research design. Research design. Okay, so these topics will explain uh, some of input about how that's your research is all about, and it's explained and give you idea. Okay, so what design of your research actually. Okay, as you can see from this list of learning objective. Okay, um, we try to understand what research design is and why it is significant to your research. Okay, and to appreciate areas of ethical sensitivity in research design, and to learn how that exploratory research design help the researcher gains a feel for the problem by providing background information, suggesting hypotheses, and prioritizing research objective. Okay, just to fix this. Okay, okay. And in this topic, we try to know the fundamental question addressed by descriptive research and the different type of descriptive research. To explain what is meant by causal research and to describe type of experimental research design, and to know the different type of test marketing and how to select a test market cities. Okay, for example, in research of marketing, this is we are taking the example on research at the marketing. We can see where we are actually in this topic. First of all, you can see first step. We have to establish the need for marketing research. So you can learn from maybe your literature review. And then you define the problem also from literature review, and from there you can establish your research objective. Then now we are in the step for determine what kind of research design that we will use. After that, we will identify information type and resources and sources, determine method of accessing data, how to collect the data, then design the data collection forms and determine the sample size and sample plan and size, collect the data, analyze data, and prepare and present the final research report. Okay, so I hope that you can get some idea about where are we right now to discuss about the research design. Okay, so research design is a set of advanced decisions that make up the master plan, specifying the method and procedure for collecting and analyzing the data or needed information. So of course it is important because uh, research design is the first rule of good research. Good research design is the first rule of good research. Okay, this knowledge of the needed research design allow advanced planning so that the project may be conducted in less time and typically at a cost saving due to efficiencies gained in pre-planning. Okay, so objective for research designs, you can see from here, to get at least some basic information, to develop the hypothesis, and to measure the state of variable of interest, to test hypotheses that specify the relationship between two or more variable. Okay, So you have to be very cautious about the research design. In many cases, research is iterative process. By conducting one research project, we learn that we may need additional research, so which may result in using multiple research design. Okay. So there are three types of research design that we will discuss more further after this: exploratory, descriptive, and causal. Okay. So exploratory research is usually conducted at the outset of research project. It is usually conducted at the outset of research project. It is usually conducted when the researcher does not know much about the problems. Okay, so that means you are looking to explore your topic that you want to study. There are few function or role uses of exploratory research. Can gain background information, and from there you do this kind of research design. You can define the term. That means if you need in your objective for third step, if I'm not mistaken, third or second step for I think it's that's the third step in first slide, a few first slide that we showed just now. Okay, if your objective to define to clarify the definition of a few term or concept, that this is a better design that for you to use. Define the terms and clarify problem and hypothesis. Clarify problems and hypothesis, why that's happened and why that's for example the problems between one's reason to another one reason, and then establish a research priorities. So all of this can be used for for exploratory research. So there are few methods you can see from here. Exploratory research method, secondary data analysis, the process of searching for interpreting existing information relevant to research topic, and then experience survey, so refer to gathering information from those to be knowledgeable on the issue relevant to the research problem. That's a key informant technique. For example, the gathering information from those thought to be knowledgeable on the issues relevant to the problem, and a lead user survey used to acquire information from lead users of a new technology. Okay, that's you can use for experience survey. Experience survey, that's you want to get information from the knowledgeable on the relevant issues. And under exploratory research method, we can do case analysis. This is you can see a few of past research. Case study in where in A, in place B, okay, in company A. Okay, so a review of that's a review of available information about the former situation that has some similarities to the current research problem. That's a case analysis. And you can also use this exploratory research method by using the method for one of the method that's quite famous is a focus group. That small group brought together, and then we do the discussion and guided by a moderator through an unstructured, spontaneous discussion for the purpose of gaining information relevant to the research problem. So I have experienced this before when I try to get information, spontaneous information from practitioner on how to define and what they understand about the definition of talent, and then how about the implementation in their company or organization. So we can do this kind of exploratory research method by handling or manage a focus group discussion. Okay. And then another type of research design. Okay, you can see from here descriptive research, the second type for research design. Okay, descriptive research is undertaken to describe answers to question of who, what, where, when, and how. So it is desirable when we wish to study to project a studies finding to a larger population. So if the study sample is representative. The descriptive research can be classified as cross-sectional studies and longitudinal studies. Cross-sectional studies or longitudinal studies. Okay, cross-sectional studies a measure unit from a sample of population of only one point in time. So that means a snapshot. That's cross-sectional studies. No need to collect the data in two time. Okay, we just only one snapshot. Okay, so sample survey are cross-sectional studies whose sample are drawn in such a way as to be representative of a specific population. That's a very common sample survey. That's an example for descriptive research study using cross-sectional studies. Okay, so this study are usually presented with a margin of error. Okay, with a margin of error. So we accept a few of outliers to and we can calculate the few of parameter of error. And then under the descriptive research studies, the second method to do this kind of research study is a longitudinal studies. Repeatedly measure the same sample unit of population over time. So it is very useful if you are looking to study, for example, the effectiveness of program, the effectiveness of training. So you can engage with this kind of research studies, descriptive research studies. Okay, since they involve multiple measurement over time, so they are often described as movies of the population. That means we can evaluate the effect of, for example, training program. So again, as you can see from there, after we decide what objective of our study, that we can identify our research design. And then under descriptive research studies, we have also continuous panel. That means we ask panel members the same question on each panel measurement. And this continuous panel, so vary question from one panel measurement to the next. So these are sometimes referred to as omnibus panel. Omnibus meaning including or covering many things or classes. So this continuous panel are demographically matched to some larger entity, implying representativeness. And this continuous panel represents sources of information that may be quickly accessed for a wide variety of purposes. Okay. So under continuous panel, we use brand switching studies. These studies examine how many consumers switch brand. How many consumer switch brands. And then some market tracking studies, those that measure some variable of interest such as market share or unit sales over time. Okay, this is example for two result of cross-sectional studies. Which brand of chocolate chip cookie did you which brand of chocolate chip cookie did you most recently purchase? Okay, so for the cross-sectional survey 1 and the cross-sectional survey 2. So in this result, okay, you can see there's not so many difference result from here, okay, because we use almost same. So I think it is same method under descriptive cross-sectional survey. Okay. Okay, this is for two wave of a longitudinal study. Which brand of the chocolate chip did you most recently purchase? Okay, you can see for wave 1 and a wave 2 brand. Okay, so over the time you can see differences between wave 1 with wave 1 brand and wave 2 brand. And under research design, we can find another ones what we call as a causal research. Causality may be thought as as understanding a phenomenon in terms of conditional statement of the term. For example, if X then Y. If X then Y. That's normally we study the relationship between the variable A and B, or X and Y. The causal relationship are often determined by the use of experiment. So an experiment is defined as manipulating an independent variable to see how it affects a dependent variable. So while also controlling the effect of additional extraneous variable. So we try to control other variable to expecting as a constant, and we try to study between two variable, independent and dependent variable. So what it does mean of independent variable? Independent variable are those variable that the researcher has a control over and wishes to manipulate. Wishes to manipulate. Okay. So for example, a level of ad expenditure, type of ad appeal, display location, method of compensating salesperson, price, and type of product. So there are so many independent variable that can maybe we can relate with a dependent variable. So this all will develop based on not simply as what you like to choose. Actually, they are well developed based on our literature review. Okay. And dependent variable are those variable that we have a little or no direct control over, but a strong interest in changing based on what happened to independent variable. So for example, if we want to relate dependent variable as customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction is something that you are quite difficult to control over, but there are something that can have interest, strong interest in changing for this. For example, customer satisfaction based on the quality of service or the time or duration for waiting, for example. Okay, extraneous variable. Okay, extraneous variable are those variable that may have some effect on dependent variable, yet are not in the independent variable. Okay, so now there are very famous extraneous variable we can relate, like maybe mediator or moderator. Okay, and that's extraneous variable. Okay. So maybe independent variable not affect directly to dependent variable, but if there are extraneous variable, you can see this both independent and extraneous variable can affect a lot to dependent variable. Okay, experimental design is a procedure for devising an experimental setting such that a change in a dependent variable may be attributed solely to the change in an independent variable. Okay, this is only for example if we try to set up our store. Okay, so maybe from this you can see okay, how that's the best or ideal location for this store. Okay, from this you can see a fewer second to reach and then more second to reach in area. Okay, in area of more warm let's say in this more cool. Okay, yeah, blue can we can show as a cool so this is example for store experiment. So the best ideal location for snack section, let's say they prefer this here and cold valve entry, this one cashier and the fountain beverages. Okay, even in develop or design store we have to do some experiment for this. Okay. Right, this is how just a few of term that we can denote as a O. We can manipulation, we can denote as act, random assignment. Okay, experimental effect, symbol of experimental design. O, that's denotation from measurements or observation of a dependent variable. Manipulation we can denote as act. Or change of independent variable. Random assignment can be denoted as R of subject to experimental and control group. Okay, experimental effect we denote as E, change in the dependent variable due to the independent variable. Okay, this is again we can use if we are looking for effectiveness of program or we want to decide or our objective of research to evaluate the effectiveness of program. We can do pre-test and post-test. Pre-test refer to the measurement of dependent variable taken prior to changing the independent variable. Okay, post-test refers to measuring the dependent variable after changing the independent variable. The independent variable is something that contribute to dependent variable. So we do the pre-test and post-test and try to do the comparison between these two. Okay, these two results. So a true experimental design isolate the effect of the independent variable on the dependent variable while controlling for the effect of any extraneous variable. And quasi experimental design ones that do not properly control for the effect of extraneous variable on our dependent variable. Okay, so we don't have to really remember all of these things. I think maybe quite strange for us to remember all the term that's in this slide, but the most important thing, okay, we must know that after we set an objective, some objective for our research, okay, we can find the best research design for us to achieve or to achieve our objective. Okay, before after with control group, okay, this also can use under experimental design. Maybe achieved by randomly dividing subject of the experiment into two groups, the control group and the experimental group. Okay, for example, control group is people who don't receive any training program. That's the control group. And at the experimental group, okay, we can give a pre-test and post-test for them. Okay, so that's experimental group. Okay, so control group, as explained here, okay, control of extraneous variable typically achieved by the use of a second group of subject. And experimental group, okay, the group that has been exposed to change a change in the independent variable, as what I give an example just now. Experimental group can a group that selected to go for training, for example. Okay, so how valid are experiments? Okay, this is very important as well, and one of the very crucial part in order for us to show our result is valid. If you fail to understand of this topic, I think it can become your thesis can become a major correction because you don't use a valid instrument to measure and to process here to get the correct data. So an experiment is valid if the following are true. The observed change in the independent variable is due to the independent variable, and the result of experiment apply to the real world outside the experimental setting. Okay. Right, two forms of validity are used to assess the validity of an experiment. We must do internal validity, okay, that is concerned with the extent to which the change in the independent variable is actually due to the change in the dependent variable. So that's why I remind you about literature review. We are not simply choose any kind of dependent or independent variable without any strong base. So we have to develop our base understanding about the topic that we are trying to study. Okay. External validity refer to the extent that the relationship observed between the independent and dependent variable during the experiments is generalizable to the real world. So this is how that we can use this observe relationship, and actually this is can apply can generalize in real world. Okay. So laboratory experiments, okay, are those in which the independent variable is manipulated and measure of the dependent variable are taken in a contrived artificial setting for the purpose of controlling the many possible extraneous variable that may affect the dependent variable. Okay. So we try to develop the like a lab, experiment. Okay. And field experiment are those in which the independent variable are manipulated, and the measurement of the dependent variable are made on test unit in their natural setting. Okay. So in marketing, especially, okay, in marketing field, for example, test marketing is the phrase commonly used to indicate an experiment, study, or test that is conducted in a field setting. Okay, main uses of test market to test sales potential for a new product or service, or to test variation in the marketing mix for a product or service. Okay. Okay, this is just example for marketing research. Okay. Electronic test marketing, okay, simulated test market, right? This is if you want to do a study, you have to identify the place that can represent, then the place that degree you can measure the degree of isolation and ability to control the distribution and promotion. It means everything you do for any kind of research, for example in psychology or business research, you can control, you have the ability to control any variable that you identify. Okay, this is again the example from test marketing, pros and cons. Okay, just in case you want to do marketing research, the advantage for that, test marketing allow for the most accurate method for forecasting future sale, and it's allow for the opportunity to pre-test marketable marketing mix variable. Okay, and disadvantage maybe if you do a marketing research, you can test disadvantage for this test market do not yield infallible result. Okay, competitive may intentionally try to sabotage test market. Okay, so this all of disadvantage of test marketing. If okay, and then test market may create ethical problems. Okay, right, so I think that's all for this topic, and thank you very much for this time, and so we will meet again, okay, next time. Okay, thank you, bye bye.